son who, when he saw my prosthesis, I was shocked. 10 years old, and his reading was, probably your friend complained that it disturbs him your teeth when you suck his dick, so you were kind enough. Okay, but that son, I took him to stock exchange and showed him what ideology is. There, like I'm a vulgar empiricist Marxist, you get there, at least when I was with my son a year and a half ago, you get some free leaflets where they tell you people wrongly think that stock exchange is something abstract, speculative. No, but stock exchange, it's really about concrete people exchanging, interacting, working, and so on and so on. And Marx's answer is here an ingenious one. He says, no, precisely, we should avoid this direct materialism. What do I mean by this? Just think about, I quote it often, the first sentence of that famous subchapter of the first chapter of Capital on commodity fetishism, when Marx says something extremely strange for a materialist. He says, a commodity, more or less literally, I hope I remember it, a commodity appears at the first glance as a simple object out there. Nothing mysterious. But he says it's only the theoretical analysis which discovers, I think he used a complex German term which basically means theological, spiritual eccentricities, mysteries of a commodity. Why is this strange? Because you see, Marx is not saying in ordinary life we are mystified, we think we are dealing with some higher spiritual force, but materialist analysis shows how this spiritual form is a mystifying abstraction, how it's grounded in concrete life form. Marx says almost the exact opposite. In our ordinary daily experience, we think we are dealing with a commodity out there. What's mysterious about it? This is a commodity, that's a commodity, money is commodity. But he says it's only the critical analysis which brings out, let's call it what Marx ironically calls the theological eccentricities, the theological dimension of capital. In other words, when Marx claims that, with all the ironic references to idealism, that the world of commodities is a Hegelian world where abstractions move in themselves and so on, he is not describing our wrong perception. He's describing social reality. In what sense? Remember, one still should read Marx. At many points we should think further, but he saw some wonderful things. Namely, when Marx says that when Marx proposes as a formula of ideology in Capital, Sie wissen das nicht, aber sie tun es. They don't know what they are doing, but they are doing it. His point is not the vulgar, reductionist, materialist one. People are doing something, but because of ideological blindness, they don't know what they are doing. So illusion is not in what you think. It's not we are really doing one thing, but we misperceive it and have again, mystified, perverted notion of it. No. The proper way to paraphrase Marx would have been what? Marx knew very well that, to put it slightly ironically, a concrete bourgeois subject in his self or her self-perception is not a Hegelian mystique, but it's probably a British nominalist, no? Like, there are only concrete objects, commodities, who cares about abstractions, but it is the way he behaves on the market, in his actual market relations, that he acts unknowingly in a theological way. Theology rules, of course, Marx is not an idealist. He doesn't mean, when he speaks about theological dimension, that there is real God, a controlling thing. But what he says is that your, let's call them theological presuppositions, in the sense, of course, of theology of the market, commodity fetishism, is not in your awareness, but it is in your social interaction. This is why I think Jacques Lacan, you know, the guy, was right when he said that the true, even Marxist, when he said that the true formula of atheism is not God is dead, but God is unconscious. You know, in this simple sense, today, this is why also Walter Benjamin put it so nicely that capitalism is a theological, religious phenomenon. It's simply, I claim, in the sense that even if we, who are subjects of capitalism, even if we, of course, we don't believe, we are cynical and so on, but belief is embodied in our very social practice. Let me give you an example of this, a very simple one from psychoanalysis, so elementary that it's almost ridiculous. Let's say, unfortunately, I'm some 40, 50 years too old to say this about me. Let's say that you are an adolescent who, like every normal adolescent, thinks that his father is a stupid jerk, an idiot, which is true. And his father, now you will see the paradox. You think I'm embarrassed by my father, he is a stupid, confused jerk. And your father probably, you know, if I again refer to that Guardian interview, it simply means my father is part of that 99% of idiots. No? Even, and you are right, but nonetheless, an elementary experience tells you that as a rule, when you see this same adolescent actually interacting with his father, you will see something totally different, a mixture of fear, respect, even love, and so on and so on. So, you know, one thing is what he thinks, my father is a jerk, but as we put it in very naive terms, unconsciously, he has a quite different, much more traumatized, affectionate relationship to his father. And incidentally, if you encounter such a case, there is, but I don't advise you to do it, it's very aggressive. There is a simple way to test this. When a friend of yours tells you, my father is a jerk, and so on, no? Just agree with him too much. Tell him, yeah, I agree. I haven't seen such a jerk in all my life, no? And you will see how he will be immediately hurt and will start to defend. You know, it's the same with patriotism. Orwell wrote nicely about it long ago. How, you know, precisely talking about you Englishmen, no? How it's part of your, he made fun, Orwell, of upper class liberal identity. No, yes, you make fun, the British and so on, but it's strictly an inner joke. Try as a foreigner to agree with them. Yes, British are stupid, you will see. So why I think is this Marx so actual today? Because more than ever, we, I think, even to an extent which was unimaginable maybe for Marx, we live within this tension. On the one hand, our immediate reality is cynical, nominalist, whatever, and so on. On the other hand, through all the ideology, financial speculations, and so on, we, even if we experience ourselves as cynical atheists, we practice religion. I mean, religion, not this time in strictly theological sense, but religion in the sense of trust in the market and so on. I will give you a nice example. Did you notice how, and it always surprises me to what extent this became our everyday way of talking. You know, we can make fun of, it's a learned term, I find it difficult to pronounce it, prosopopoeia, you know, when in shitty poetry objects speak, like, you know, for example, and it's very interesting, the point when this became prohibited, impossible, and how it returned. For example, in the early operas, Monteverdi, Orfeo, you still have abstract concepts or ideas appearing as persons. For example, at the beginning of Monteverdi's Orfeo, not Gluck, Gluck is already psychological realism, later la musica, music appears and sings, you know, or poetry appears and sings. With psychological realism, this became impossible. But I think there is a Marxist dimension in it. No wonder that, for example, in Bertolt Brecht, this attitude of prosopopeia returns. But what I want to tell you here is that just open Financial Times and so on. Are we aware that this prosopopeia is returning with a vengeance? Just when you read about austerity measures, did you notice how, although we all know market doesn't exist, every bourgeois subject would have tell you if asked, I'm not an idiot, there is no market. Market is not a subject. All there is we concrete individuals interacting and so on and so on. But sorry, that's not what we are saying. What we are saying, read it. They say, for example, almost every day you get this magical thinking, like markets expressed their doubt about these measures. We are even returning to some kind of pre-Christian pagan divinities. Markets are not satisfied. They will demand more sacrifice and so on. You know, this is a beautiful example of ideology, how, of course, if you ask the people, they will say, of course, I don't believe in it. I'm sorry, that's how we talk. And the reality is in how, this is the great formula of Hegel, that what you effectively say is much more important than what you want to say. That it's not, this is a wonderful dialectical point, it's not that you say something, but you really mean something else. This is simple, in Lacan's terms, imaginary cheating. The truly interesting, Lacan would have called it properly symbolic cheating, is cheating the other way round. You think that you are just pretending to do something, but you really laugh at it. Oh, I'm just pretending. But you yourself don't know that what you experience as a mask is your truth, and your inner distance towards it is a lie. For example, I often quote it from, it's not yet 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte, but the other text, Klassenkämpfe, Class Struggles in France. Marx had a wonderful passage, which I quoted some 10 times already, I think, where he mentions the coalition between two bourgeois parties, royalist parties, Orleanists, and which were the other one? Orleanist and what? Sorry? Which were the other royal family, you know? Bourbon. Yeah. Bourbons. And he says, both of them made fun all the time of the Republican form. They thought, oh, we are just pretend for the sake, because we live in French Republic, to be Republicans, but in reality we are royalists. But what they didn't notice is that the, let's call it, social truth of their activity was precisely in the Republican form. You know, when you do something, and this is even, I think, the usual way we dupe ourselves through hypocrisy, you know. You do something and you tell to yourself, but I don't mean it seriously, it's just a joke, and so on and so on. Well, no, your inner life is a joke. What you think is just a mask, what you pretend to do, as they put it in X-Files, which I like to quote, the truth is out there. You know, here Marx and Freud are true materialists against Jung. The unconscious truth is not, oh, I go deep into myself or whatever. No, truth is out there. Truth is embodied in social relations and so on and so on. And okay, now more of Marx than of Hegel. So allow me to go a little bit further to what is great about Hegel. What Marx got, I will try to approach it through precisely, again, allow me to go a little bit further in the notion of commodity fetishism. You know, even Marx, I claim, was a little bit perplexed, didn't know what to do, because the early Marx, till mid-50s, when he returned to Critique of Political Economy and did it seriously, the early Marx, he still thought he was still, in a way, too much